All right, so welcome to the last Life Abroad presentation for 2020. We are very excited to have Angelique Evans. She graduated in 2009, correct? And studied from the fall of 2008. Angelique was one of the students who studied abroad when I first started. And so I was very fortunate enough to be in China and get to see her, and then she got to take me around. So I am looking forward to hearing about her experiences because I remember being there as well. So once again, we're going to ask you if you have any questions throughout the presentation to please submit them in the chat. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Angelique Evans.
Hello, hello. It's nice to see some familiar faces and see some new faces as well. Christy, just a heads up, there's a lot of moving parts in this presentation. So just click and have fun and I'll go with the flow of it. So as Christy mentioned, my name is Angelique Evans. And I thought to start off with one of those how it's going versus how it started situations. So it started with me graduating from Marietta in 2009. I was a McDonough scholar and I studied in the leadership program. And now I am a PhD student at the College of Education, the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And I am an education policy, organization, and leadership student. Global education and diversity and equity are my majors or my concentrations. One more thing before we go to the next slide. I'm all about challenges in social media. So I thought the easiest way to go through this presentation would be with the 5 different looks challenge. So you'll catch that there's numbers throughout, but I also hoped that it would help me keep it kind of short, sweet, and to the point. Next slide, please. So I know she told you to wait until the end, but I'm an interactive person, so you can unmute yourselves and say what you have to say. So before you walk, you've got to, does anybody know how to finish this one? Anybody? Going once, twice? All right, Christy, hit the button for me. You have to curl. And before, thank you, Tina. Oh, Tina's here. Hi. And so before I could, please click the button, walk across the stage of Marietta College. I had to crawl as a freshman, click the button, please, at Marietta Hall. And this picture here is when I first started at Marietta. You can click the button again. I turned 18 by officially joining the Long Blue Line and matriculating at Marietta College. So I applied to 5 universities for undergrad, and I got into all of them, but there were 2 reasons that I picked Marietta over the others. One was the McDonough Leadership Scholarship Program, and the second was Mandarin Chinese. So I heard that Chinese was the hardest language in the world, and I thought, challenge accepted, thus Marietta was my first choice. Next slide, please. Okay, so I have a question for you. True or false? Most Black and Brown students enter their undergraduate programs planning to study or intern abroad. You can shake your head, you can write in the chat. False, I see some falses. All right, excellent, please click the slide. The answer is false. I was one of the lucky ones who came in with the idea that if I wanted to be a McDonough scholar, I had to study abroad. So it was in my head that it was part of my program, but I was kind of trying to wiggle my way out of it almost my entire time at Marietta. Next slide, please. All right, so here we are, phase 2. I actually went to China for my study abroad experience. Please keep clicking. And August 8th of 2008, I entered Beijing for the first time. I celebrated my 21st birthday later that month, and I was a student at the China Foreign Affairs University in Beijing. Please click the slide. Next slide, please. So again, I have another question for you. What are 2 travel documents that you would need to enter many foreign countries?
Passport, visa.
Excellent, Elliot. Please click the slides. You need your passport and you need your visa. An interesting fact here is that a visa, if you don't know what that is, it's a form that tells you where you're going, when you're going to enter, and how long you can legally be there. Okay, so I did not know when I was going to study abroad that I needed a visa. I thought the only visa there was a little credit card to spend money. Did not know that there was a special paper I needed to enter countries when I was traveling. And actually, the visa on this page is my visa to Ghana from this past December. So I spent Christmas in Ghana, and it was such an amazing opportunity. But we'll get to that later. Next slide, please. All right, so slide 3. I started at Marietta. I continued with my study abroad program, and then it was time to graduate. Please click away. And so when I graduated, we were in the middle of kind of a recession. There weren't jobs. It was so difficult to find anything. So I decided that I would go back to China to study at Tsinghua University for 6 months. Please note that the 6 months is bolded and it's in color, and it's for a reason. So I went with the plan to study abroad again for 6 months. I wanted to improve my language skills. And when I was at Tsinghua, I joined the debate team. And the picture, I'm not sure if it's going to be to your right. This picture that you see here is actually me on the debate team at a competition we had in Thailand. So that's phase 3. Next slide, please. So after I graduated, I was in Tsinghua, I was doing really well, but I realized that traditional language study was not for me. And I was also having issues with my roommate. We didn't get along for various reasons. And so I decided I had to make a choice. Do I want to learn this language or do I want to leave? Because I was hitting the 6-month mark. And I decided I want to stay, I want to make it work. So I got a job. And I'm a miniature person. I don't think people can tell how small I am. So up at your possibly top left, you see a picture of me and one of my students because they always laughed at how small I was. And it was like their joke. They call me a mini, like a little mini candy. And it was a funny joke. So for picture 4, it talks about how I didn't transition from a student to working. Next slide, please. And the cool thing is you never realize the way that you might impact someone or how your experiences might change other people. So one of my really good friends that I met at Marietta, her name is Maggie. She called me one day, and with the time change in Beijing, it was a 12-13 hour difference. So it was my lunch break and her 1 o'clock in the morning. And she said, hey, I never see you. And I said, hey, if you want to see me, you got to come abroad. I was kind of joking, but I was actually quite serious. Next, if you click again. And Maggie actually did that, and she moved to Korea. And we have traveled together to 7 countries. I want to say actually it's more than that now, possibly, and 2 continents. So we have literally traveled the world together. And Maggie was also a student at Marietta, and she studied abroad in Scotland when she was there. Next slide, please. Part 5. I am now a 3rd year PhD student here at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And my research focus is on the underrepresentation of Black students as well as scholars in international education. So this would be study and intern abroad programs. Next slide, please. So how did this come about? When I applied for the program, I said I wanted to look at education in 3rd world countries for girls. That's what I wanted to do. Couldn't change my mind. But my first paper in the program, my professor told me I couldn't write what I wanted to write about because we didn't have the time. And he said, I think it's interesting you've been abroad. Why don't you tell me about it? And I was like, that's not an academic paper. But it turns out it can be. So I learned about ethnographic studies and, stories about yourself that you can make academic. And so I wrote this paper, and it was called Green Tea, Black Ghosts, and White Wine: The Importance of Studying Abroad for African-American Students, Personal Reflections of an African-American Female Expat in China. Next slide, please. While writing this paper, I learned 3 really interesting things, which then changed the course of my research. 1, I learned that African-American students only make up 6% of study abroad participants nationally in institutions of higher education, which is interesting because we make up 13% of the general population. More recently, we're at 16.1 for the last, I'm sorry, not 16, 6.1 for the last academic year, but we're trailing behind even within other minority groups. And I was curious why, other than we don't know that we can do it. Click 2 more times, please. 1, we have a lack of passports. African Americans hold the least amount of passports of citizens in the US. And the second one is a lack of representation and mentors. So this could be in study abroad offices. This could be just knowing people who have been abroad. And so these are kind of big reasons why people are not studying abroad. Next slide, please. And I found it interesting when this was the case. When I did a bit of research, I found that 93% of students who had participated in a study abroad program through the Institute of International Education said that they had been hired full time in a job within their field 6 months after they had graduated. Now, it's okay that this is such a large number because it's not just focusing on minority students. It means all students who have participated in a study abroad program. And the same study said that 41.7% of students said that studying abroad impacted their decision to continue their education. And I am proof of that because I got my master's degree from Norwich University in diplomacy and conflict resolution management. And I learned so much from being abroad and the things that I wanted to do and the changes that I wanted to make. Next slide, please. So my passion led us here where we are today, but also me to where I am. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier I had to write this paper in my graduate program. And when I wrote the paper originally, I said someone needs to make a difference. Somebody has to make a change. Who is going to come and level the playing fields for Black and Brown students and scholars? Who's going to do it? I don't know who it is, but they need to get here and do something. In the final draft, I actually edited that part and I said, I'm going to take up the call to action that I gave in previous drafts, and I'm going to be the person who would do that. And so, next slide, please. I have created an organization and it's called Hey Butterfly, the Initiative. The original name was the Black Butterfly Initiative, but I had to change it because other people had the name. So I was trying to figure out how I could keep the name, but still change it. And so what I did was I actually incorporated my experience abroad in China. And I used the traditional character for hey, which is a nod to my time in Hong Kong and Macau. And then I'm just using the Chinese language, dialect of Mandarin for pronunciation. And it's still Black Butterfly, the Initiative. And the goal is to fill the gaps within the research that I'm seeing currently. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
So, oh my goodness. Hi, Dr. Bland. And so how do I plan to do that?
I wasn't on mute.
It's okay. And so how do I plan to do this? One aspect of Hey Butterfly, the initiative, we're still in the middle of changing a couple of things name-wise, is through Kaleidoscope. And so Kaleidoscope is actually the formal name of a group of butterflies, and it is the formal name of our online and virtual mentoring program. So our mentoring program pairs expats and former study abroad students with students who would like to participate in study abroad so that we can answer the questions that they may have that they might not feel comfortable asking the traditional people in study abroad offices. So currently I have mentors from Ghana, Spain, France, Hong Kong, Korea, Tonga, the UK, and there's more places coming in slowly but surely. Next slide, please. And then one major, always an issue is finance. So how are people financing this? What financial opportunities are there for you? What can you do as a student or a parent to assist your student with this? Well, we have Cocoon. So Cocoon is a financial literacy branch of Hey Butterfly, the initiative. Please click. And it focuses on financial literacy, ways that you can budget, how can you raise money. And I'm also partnering with Student Universe to offer small discounts to students on their first international trip when study abroad can happen again. But in the meantime, we're gonna do some other cool things. Next slide. There's also resume and curriculum vitae assistance for pre and post program assistance. So if you're trying to intern abroad, we can help you tailor your resume. And then when you come back, we can help you, for the job market. Next slide, please. If you are interested in more information on my journey or even Hey Butterfly, the initiative, you can follow us on any of our social media handles here. We have a Facebook page, Instagram. If you're interested in being a mentor, also please don't hesitate to send me an email. It would be very much appreciated. Last slide. I want to give a quick thank you to the people who actually laid the foundation to make me successful in ways that I hope I don't cry, I'm getting emotional, in ways that I never imagined. So first would be Dr. Gama Perucci. He was my mentor and advisor when I was a student at Marietta, and I actually was considering dropping out multiple times because I was having issues with my health. I had personal issues going on, people were dying. I had imposter syndrome as well. Imposter syndrome is a real thing, even as an undergrad, and it doesn't go away as you progress through the field. And so I remember one time he sat me down and he said, look, have you seen these commercials? It was like Amazon or somebody, and they were talking about your it. And he said, find your it. That's all you have to do. Find your it and keep going. And I was like, I don't have the it. But here I am 11 years later, and every time I've had a major accomplishment, Dr. Perucci has been there somewhere. He's either been a reference or just that find your it has been in the back of my head. Dr. Bland always gave great advice to either myself or my really good friend Maggie, and we would just always talk about the good advice that we got, the solid advice that we got. And Dr. Bland has answered so many of my emails and Facebook messages seeking advice, even now, 11 years later. And she's just always a support. Christy has just been awesome to have someone in the field that if I have a question, even if it's like a one line, probably I should know that, she still answers with a smile and she's so supportive. And then Dr. Reese Miller, I can't even believe you're on this call. I did not know you were gonna be here. So again, emotional. When I first said I wanted to go abroad, I talked to Dr. Reese Miller and she said, you know what, I'm going to be honest, you're either going to hate it or you're going to love it. It's not for everybody. Give it a try, see how it goes. And and I just want to say thank you to all of you, and to Dr. Winley Bartlett. You have also just been an amazing encouragement for me all this time. I haven't seen you guys in 11 years, but truly, truly thank you. For encouraging me to stay in school, and soon I'm gonna have my doctorate, and for inviting me here today. And I'm gonna stop because I'm crying. Thanks. Next slide, if you have questions. I'm good. Sorry, I had a moment, but I'm back.
You're allowed to have a moment. So, okay, so for those who are on the call, this is a great time to turn on your camera and ask Angelique a question. If you are camera shy or don't want to be seen, I completely understand that. And so you can send it in the chat and Elizabeth will read the question for Angelique.
Oh man, this is gonna be recorded that I cry. People are about to.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the first question. So
Okay.
a good time to think about it because I know some of the answers. So you talked about being abroad, like, and living in China, but you didn't live in the same place for 10 years.
No, I did not.
Talk a little bit more about where you started and how you moved, particularly with regards to, at one point I remember you were in Macau, another point you were in Hong Kong, and moving within what we call China. Like, there's a lot of moving parts of freedom. And I remember at one point you said, I'm in Macau now, so I have Facebook, and oh wait, I'm moving to this place, so now I don't have this. So talk a little bit about the complexity of China and where all you bounced around.
Okay, so I started off in Beijing, and I got my feet wet in Beijing because I was studying Chinese, yes, but we had international scholars on campus, and I wanted to learn the language. When I said in my presentation, traditional language learning it's not my thing. I can pick up the language, but I need some real life with it. I linked up with the international scholar, and we would be in our house and we would cook and we would do all these things. And she said, come early so you can stay at my house and like learn about things, right? So I did, and I met her family, and they were absolutely amazing. But it also gave me a chance to see how different I was in a different country. And so I stayed in Beijing for 4 years. So after I graduated and I returned to Beijing, I was there for 4 years. So 6 months I studied, and then 3.5 years I worked. And then unfortunately I got sick. I got really bad pneumonia, and it was because Beijing goes through desertification. I'm not a scientist, Dr. Bartlett. I'm pretty sure I probably butchered that, but it goes through the season where it's basically like dust storms. And so I had to move. And I had traveled to Hong Kong before and I loved it. So Hong Kong is this tropical island. It has a mix of traditional language. Okay, so traditional Chinese language in terms of the writing, and they speak Cantonese, but they also have Mandarin. And the blocks that are in place in mainland China are not in place in Hong Kong or Macau. So I can access Facebook and Instagram and all of those things without issue. I don't need a virtual private network, so I don't need a VPN to do it. The money transfer, the currency is different as well. Macau, same way. I wanted to check it out, and Macau is really cool because it used to belong to the Portuguese. So again, language nerd, Portuguese, I'm in this thing. So I got to go to Macau for a bit and learn a little bit of Portuguese. They also speak traditional Cantonese and Mandarin and English. So I kind of moved around. The reason I stayed in China, so to speak, is because of the vacation time. So if you work for a foreign school, they have to honor the foreign calendar, but they also have to honor the local calendar. So I would work for 2 months. So August and September, you work. The first week of October is a holiday. Then you have November, which is our Thanksgiving. So you get a couple of days off. Then you have Christmas, which collides with Lunar New Year. So that means from December to January, mid-February, you're on vacation. And because it's such a great place to travel from in terms of transport, tickets, price, all that stuff, it's the place that I decided to stay, but still move around, if that makes sense.
I have so clearly picked the wrong job. How you doing, hon?
I'm good. All of you just made me cry on national camera.
It's really good to
Crap
see
it
you.
out. It's good
really
to see you too.
Where are you now?
I'm actually, so I came back to the States in March. I did not pack for the long term. I was coming because Corona was going on, and I thought, okay, maybe this thing it'll be handled soon. So I packed for 2 weeks. A week of those was supposed to be a conference in London, and then it was canceled. And now I'm in Champaign, Illinois with no winter clothes. This is actually a short sleeve shirt. I just gonna, so I need to winterize my wardrobe. But I am in Champaign, working on my PhD. Hopefully next semester is my last semester of classes. I was hoping it was this semester, but changing the schedule. And yeah.
So Angelique, what's your dissertation topic? Do you know yet?
Yeah, well, okay. It's going to work in my mind, again, in my mind. I am planning to build a hay butterfly to fill the gaps. And so it's going to be a case study sort of a situation to see how the services assist students. Our first event is actually going to be in February for National Study Abroad Day. It's going to help people get passports. So hopefully we can work with colleges around the country to bring students in and to help them, basically have a virtual block party, offer them some goodies for participating, and get people to get their passports. And I received a grant last year for my research. And it's actually in conjunction with another scholar I met at a conference. I think it's important for me to say really quickly that this idea, Hey Butterfly, is only 3 years old. So it was a year of me thinking this could be a thing. In the second year, I wrote a paper. I presented at a conference. And this right now is year 3. So last year, I met a young lady at a conference, and her work focuses in Ghana. So we actually wrote a grant together to create a study abroad class and trip to Ghana. So hopefully once COVID works out, we have, recognition of our name, we've partnered with some universities, and we can take students to Ghana, and kind of just see how the whole situation, right? How it compares to students who didn't have these same benefits, or things to help them through. So this is my dissertation. It's gonna be my new life's work.
Cool.
We have a couple questions in the chat. So the first one is, do you still experience imposter syndrome?
I'm gonna be very honest with you, every day, every day. And I think it's important to note that imposter syndrome comes in different shapes and forms, right? So it could be, ooh, is this paper scholarly? What counts as scholarly work, right? Because you're always learning what's research, what's not, how to write, how not to write. For example, when I first was asked to write the paper that inspired this whole situation, I in my mind, okay, I said, okay, I'm gonna fail. It's my first class of my first semester, my doctorate. I'm about to fail out because this isn't a scholarly paper. How can I make this a scholarly paper, right? But then, like I said, I finally put my pride aside and stopped crying and having a conniption, and I wrote this paper. I looked for stats to support the problem I was finding. I looked for research that said, hey, this is what you think, this is what we know, this is what we've seen. I tried to find conferences that talked about similar subjects and hoped that they would talk about this particular issue. But this subject specifically is only 28 years old, right? So it's about as old as my brother. I just told you my age. And so I have imposter syndrome because sometimes I just don't know what I'm doing. And then other times, people question your work. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you should question your work or what you're going after, but it makes you think a little bit more. And sometimes you have to be a bit more heavy on your feet, if you will, not light on your feet, not quick on your feet. You have to be heavier because you have to stand solid and say, what I'm doing is important. Whether you like it or not, that's not my issue. But what I'm doing is important. What I'm studying is interesting. This is why it matters. This is the impact I'm hoping to make, right? So yeah, I have to write a paper. I wonder, am I doing it right? I'm gonna come and talk to people. It's a small meeting, but still, oh gosh, what if I mess up? What if I cry? I never in a thousand years thought I was gonna tear up, but you saw that live and live in color. But I mean, life comes at you, and I think it's always, I'm slowly but surely coming to the realization it's always going to be there. But I'm not an imposter. I'm actually making my field. Not to be like cocky, because I'm not a cocky person, but I am literally, I'm going to build this field. I am going to be that premier person. If you have a question, you want this to happen, you want it to be successful, you gotta come to me. That's my goal, right? That's how I'm thinking. That's how I'm trying to set it up. So it's gonna be there, and I know that. And there's gonna be days where I cry because I'm frustrated, or I cry because, am I doing the right thing? Should I really be doing this? Is this really my it, But you live and you learn, you take it a day at a time. And if you ever need to talk about the fact that you feel you have imposter syndrome, actually, let me clarify that you have imposter syndrome and you're feeling some sort of way about it, send me a message. I will drop my personal email. Contact me, because life, it happens. And again, sometimes you just need somebody to listen, and sometimes you need advice. Either way, I can give it. Which is something else that I hope that Kaleidoscope can do, because I might not be well versed in, I don't know, a particular major. I might not be well versed in a particular place. Maybe I've traveled there, but I haven't lived there. So I hope that helps. Hope that answers it.
The next question in the chat is, what have you learned from being a small business owner?
Well, I've learned a couple of things. So I'm still very new to being a business owner. The fact that you call me a business owner like touched my heart, like, oh my gosh, I am. I've learned that although I like to think I can do it all, I know that I can't. I know that there are skills that are not my strong suit, and asking for help or saying that I need help has been something that I've just struggled with in general, right? I just think it's weird. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, if I want this to be successful, there are things that I need help with. I'm not a graphic designer. I can't draw. Quick moment here. I can't draw this. I can't do that. Who has the time, right? A graphic designer. So I reached out to a friend of mine who's a graphic designer, and I said, what do you think about this idea? Could you help me? Financial issues are an issue. My financial literacy is very low. I reached out to somebody who that's their skill set, right? So I've learned to collaborate. I've learned to ask for help. I've learned to listen, because maybe I think my idea is the best idea for something, and somebody else is like, no, that's not it, right? I've learned to ask questions and get feedback, and I've also learned that it's not easy. So there can be imposter syndrome in trying to own a business or start a business as well. So I've learned to give myself grace and patience, which isn't something I usually give myself, but I easily give others. So that's what I did. Still learning though, trust me, still learning every day.
Angelique, when COVID is over and your classes are done, where do you want to go to continue working on Hey Butterfly?
Again, my vision, my idea, I want to, so this is what I envision in big picture, if you could take a moment and, walk with me. So my idea is that this organization, it can be anywhere that I am, but everywhere that I'm not, right? So if we have kaleidoscope mentors in different places, then they can be kind of a hub, but also you'll be able to be connected to the expat community in those places to help you. And then colleges and universities, we work in tandem with the study abroad office, or we work in tandem with McDonough, because they have their own study abroad situation. So I want to be everywhere. But again, it's about collaboration. So how can I bring other people in? How can I make them see it's a worthy venture and cause? How can I help students? How can I help universities, right? Because someone said, so who is your client? Well, bottom line, my client would be a student, any student that needs assistance. And although my goal is to improve minority students doing better and getting abroad and having these experiences, if any student came to me and said, hey, I need some help, I'm thinking about this, the door is open. I don't want that to be misconstrued, but the people that I'm really trying to say, hey, this is an option, are the people who aren't being told it's an option, are people who don't know about the opportunities. They don't know who to ask, they don't know where to go, but it's for everybody. So my hope is, after COVID, let's say 2021, 2022, hopefully I'm to the part where I'm ready to take students to Ghana. Hopefully the border is open. But within that, I hope it's from multiple schools. Like it can be a faculty-led trip under the branch or the umbrella, right? And then those students, once they come back, now they're our Hey Butterfly representatives on their campus. They can be mentors to somebody else. So everywhere. But where will I be located? I don't know. To be continued, decided, announced. We'll see.
Well, you can move in with Maggie.
As much time as we spend together, she's in Texas.
Well,
we have a trip every year, actually. And I was actually her virtual bridesmaid for her wedding. And so, yeah, we hang out often. But I'm not sure that I want to be necessarily 100% stateside. I would like to move around.
But you guys never come back to Marietta.
Dr. Bland, how did I know? I knew. I said someone's gonna say it. So we're gonna make it work. We literally have talked about this often. Like we should just go back. Cherie too. Cherie's actually my creative design lady, if you would. So I don't know how I can move. So there's merch back there, and Cherie is the person who colors things. She makes our passport holders and things like that. So we're gonna come back. It's gonna happen after COVID stops COVIDing.
I think Maggie wants to go back to Hong Kong or Korea. Maybe it was Korea.
Yeah, she's looking at it.
I'm with it. But I don't want her to talk about, what are those things called she ate in Scotland? Haggis? Is
Yeah.
some, I've eaten all sorts of terrible things around the world, but
He's a fan.
she's a
Believe it or
fan.
not.
Something stuffed inside of something else that should never go together.
She
And
can
then
have it. She can have it.
she
I'm
can't
seeing,
We
I'm
can
seeing
sit on
signs from
one side of
Elliot
the table
that he
and-
likes it. Our student from England,
Oh, you,
saying that he likes it.
you know what,
so.
Ellie? You and Maggie can sit on this side of the table. Dr. Glenn and I can sit on this side of the table, and we can watch her like this, and y'all can just enjoy it.
Have you tried it?
I haven't. I
You
know
just-
that's a really bad thing to say. I'm just weird about tech. I just, you know what, Elliot? I'm going to go on. I'm going to find it somehow. And if I can find it, I will try it on Hey Butterflies page live so that you can get my reaction. And I can tell you if I'm going to eat my words and eat more of it, or I'm going to just pass the plate.
Elizabeth, do we have any other questions?
Sounds
in the
good.
chat?
Yes, there's one final question in the chat, and the question is, did you ever get homesick? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Yes. I did get homesick, but I think I have a different way of dealing with things in my mind. And I'll put it like this. You can always come home. If it's really, really bad, you can always come home. But be patient with yourself. Give yourself grace to learn this new space, especially if you're studying abroad. Typically, it's 2 to 6 months. You might be brave enough to do a whole year, right? But you have to give yourself time to adjust to a new place. And so if it's a short trip, if it's study abroad, I would say there's an app for that. We have Skype, we have Zoom. If you're in China, you have WeChat. If you're in Korea, you have Kakao Talk, or you have Line. There are all these different apps that can help you connect with your family. And if you're planning to study abroad and you are worried about that, send me a message and tell me where you're going, and I'll find you the apps that you need, because you can do it. And you can also, heads up, help your grandparents before you go. I put Viber on my grandmother's phone, and we had a tutorial class. Like, how do you call me? How do you look at my pictures? How can you send me a picture? How can we have a video call? Teach them up before you go, and it can happen. But again, communication is key. Make sure everybody is okay with the apps. I would say do the apps because it's also free. So it's not like I have to pay how much to talk to you per minute. I'll see you in 6 months. Get the apps, it's free. You can use the Wi-Fi, you can use your cell phone data plan. It works. But in general, being abroad, like living abroad, I'm not studying abroad. I do get homesick, and I think the events of life, okay, can make that better or worse. Okay. So I've experienced loss. One of my best friends, the first person actually that I met at Marietta, passed while I was in Beijing. And it was the first college friend loss that I had. And it was hard. It was really hard to go through that. And even though you have your friends and they're virtual and they can talk to you, it's hard. And it was something that I struggled with for a long time. And I'm going to be careful how I say this. If you are spiritual, if you're religious, if you're not, maybe just like to meditate, whatever your heart desires, whatever makes your soul happy. I think it's important that you also take the time to invest in that thing, but also invest in yourself with self-care, because sometimes you're homesick, but you just need a moment to feel or to process or to do whatever it is you do. And so on those moments, I went to church. I belonged to a Korean church of all the things to belong to. They spoke in Korean. Sometimes I was sitting there like, but the music is good. But you get a good message. And so yeah, you get homesick, and unfortunately, life happens. Life doesn't stop. Whether you're stateside or whether you're abroad, I think it's important that you have a strong support system, meaning your family understand that you want to go abroad. My mom it didn't click for her until year 10.5. That's when she finally changed my room in her house because she's like, you're not coming back. And guess what? 6 months later, I'm back. But it helps that they understand kind of like your goals and what you want to do. And you keep the lines of communication open. You're going to get homesick. You're going to miss your family. You're going to have good days and bad, just like you would if you were in the States. But you kind of have to take your time to navigate that. And like I said, you can always go or come home, but you know, kind of weigh that out. Give yourself time to navigate it. And sometimes all you need is like a new friend or try a new restaurant. And you're like, oh, this is what I needed. So be patient and be kind. And at the end of the day, you know what's needed and when it's needed. If it's like, okay, I can't do this. These people here are treating me horribly. My mental health is suffering. My physical, go home. I'm not saying suck it up because it's cool. If it's too much, you go. But if it's, something you can navigate, try to navigate it. And chances are there's someone there who feels the same way. So you can get a new friend. Maybe.
There's one more question, and the question is, what was the biggest challenge you faced going abroad?
I Okay, I'm ready for this question. I think it's kind of a loaded question, but I got it. The biggest challenge one was being afraid to go. I was like, I have to get on a plane for how long? You mean this thing right here? Does it stop? Do you have enough gas? Do I eat? Do you feed me? Is it good? The fear of all the things that could be because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. The fear of going to a place where you know no one. I didn't know anyone when I went abroad the second time. So I had made some friends, but life again comes, it doesn't stop. So it's always kind of nerve-wracking to just go on a new endeavor. And then the second part I would say is, how do I put it? The way that you can be perceived without people knowing you, which can happen anywhere that you go. Okay, I'm not saying that that's not the case, but realizing that I am a Black woman no matter where I go. And I was naive and I thought, not that race didn't exist other places, but I didn't think I would be viewed differently or negatively because of my race. Until I realized, hey, the media, movies, the TV that we watch, the music that we hear, the news, these things travel with you, right? And so navigating that, and then within that, realizing that not all the time are the issues that I'm experiencing just racist, like they're trying to hurt me, but it's ignorance within this idea because they've never seen someone like me. I mean, take a good look at his face. You see his face? Now imagine you're talking a whole bunch of smack about me in Chinese, and then here I come and I respond in turn. Whoa, mind blown. Tiki time out. What? You understand? Sure do. Right? So I think it's hard, but it's also enlightening because sometimes you gotta let people know, I hear you, I understand you, and what you're not gonna do is disrespect me here because you think I don't know, right? Or some of the, like touching you and stuff, touch them back. You wanna know if it comes off? Does that come? It doesn't, no. You don't touch strangers every day? You're upset that I'm touching you and don't know you? You don't know me either. Oh, look at that. Oh. So kind of maneuvering through these things and finding a way to, make it work for you. But again, if it's too much, please do not misinterpret me by saying suck it up because it's the cool thing to do. Your health, your mental health, your space, your need to feel safe in your person as you are, but also like out and about is always paramount. So definitely, take the time. But yeah, it was weird to learn that I'm still a Black person in other contexts and how they would relate to me. And if I would get a job or if I wouldn't get a job, or, you know, things that people would say. So, but again, life keeps living, time keeps moving. And you got sometimes you just gotta flow with the meandering of it all.
Angelique, I have two questions. The first one is, when you, just going off of what you just said, did you find that people assumed you were from the continent of Africa? And was there a reaction when you said you were from the United States?
People used to argue me down that I could not be American. Like, I couldn't believe that people had the audacity to argue me down about who I was and where I was from, but they really would. And so I found the perfect way to solve the problem. Here it goes. So if any person of color is going to study abroad, somebody tells you that you can't be American or you can't be French, you have to be, this is how you solve the problem. It's ingenious. I should probably copyright before I tell you, but ask them, do you like sports? 9 times out of 10, they are either going to say yes or they're going to be familiar with it. Then pick the big names. Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. Michael Jordan, okay? Pick the biggest names that you can think of and then say, where do you think they're from? And then watch it all start to work. And if it doesn't work, say, do you think that America ships them from Africa every sports season just to play and then returns them? Watch it work, because they know how much these people make. They know the shoes. They know what's exported. They're wearing the shoes. And then it just hits them like, oh, I never thought about that. Well, duh, obviously. You didn't think about it, so now here you go. But yeah, it happened. And I was very surprised how passionate people were that I was not American or that my friend wasn't French. But they were passionate, very passionate.
Can you talk a little bit about the expat community, what that means? And if we have students on the call, and we hope that all of them will come to our office to look at study abroad options. But if they end up going abroad at a different point, you know, you were abroad for a lot of time. So you were gone for elections, you were gone for national holidays. Was the expat community helpful for you? How did you communicate with the embassy? Was the expat community through the embassy? Was it individual groups? And especially with social media, how does somebody find that network?
Okay, so first, I guess I should say what an expat is, and I apologize for not doing that earlier. So expat is short for an expatriate. So someone who has moved from their home country to another country for any amount of time, but you're not necessarily a student. So when you're studying abroad, you're just a student who's studying abroad. You don't live there. You intend to return. Expats usually say, this is it, I'm here, I'm gonna explore this new place. So the expat community, I think, honestly, some of it's just luck. You just kind of run into somebody. You walk down the street and you're like, hey, how you doing? Oh, they made eye contact. Let's be friends. Other times, I would encourage to check social media. So there are numerous groups on Facebook and all these other places. I'll say like expats in XYZ place. Okay, so they're for all the places. Once you get to a place and you're kind of involved with the applications that are local, there's also expat groups within those that you can find. For holidays, well, for Christmas, because I had this long break, I was always out exploring someplace, right? And I think that was what made my Christmases so important. So I've had Christmas in Santorini, I've had Christmas in Ghana, I've had Christmas in Australia. So it was kind of like the way to still celebrate, and I could still, you can call your family on the apps, right? So they get to experience or see this new thing or have a meal with you. For Thanksgiving, if people aren't familiar with it, you kind of introduce it and you can do a Friendsgiving, right? Everybody brings some food and you guys eat and have a good time just like you would, you know, with your family. For voting, vote absentee. Everybody on the call, please make sure you vote. Don't tell me who you vote for because it might make my heart hurt, but please vote. That's all I'm gonna say. So for voting, you can vote absentee. You have to contact the embassy before you leave. You should be a registered voter, and they will, get you paperwork to vote. My social media, when I could vote, it always said, "Hey, I voted with my expat form absentee ballot," and I think they actually do it so you don't have to pay the postage to get it back. You just need to get it back. And or you can drop it at the embassy. But I always drop mine in the mail. So, but you can vote. Please vote. It's important.
Okay, so for one final question, what is one piece of advice you would give to current students at Marietta?
Come to Hey Butterfly. Let's work with Christy and get you somewhere. This world is so much bigger than your dorm. It's so much bigger than the neighborhood that you've been living in the past couple of days. The reason that people don't travel, they don't have the reference, right? They don't know someone who's done it. But also, they get a lot of misinformation from their friends who then make it seem like it's inaccessible, unreasonable. You can't do it. It can never happen. It's not for people like you. If you want to do it, it's for you. It might mean that you have to take a little bit more time and effort, but it's doable. It's plausible, right? So make a plan. If you're not sure how to start a plan, send me an email. Like I said, I'll put my email in the chat. The Hey Butterfly email is also directly to me. So either way, I'll get your query and we can make it work. And now with COVID, you have time to prepare, right? So you can start looking at programs. If you don't have a passport, connect with me February 21st. We can get you a passport application done. Hopefully we can get your passport within 3 months. They're kind of backed up, but it's possible. That's it.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you very much, Angelique. So this concludes the formal part of the presentation. Let me turn off the record button. No, haha, just kidding.